Okay, pa. So, good afternoon, one and all present here. I take immense pleasure to welcome you all for the expert talk on prototype validation and converting prototype to startups. This expert talk is arranged on behalf of Institution Innovation Council of our R.M.D Engineering College. It is a great honor for me to introduce and welcome our chief guest for this session. Dr. Raja A.S. He completed his bachelor's, master's, and PhD degree in computer science and engineering. He worked as a professor and head in the Department of CSE, Cape Institute of Technology from 2005 to 2016. Then he moved to industry. He is currently working as associate consultant in Envest Limited Company, Trivandrum. He's having 17 years of mixed experience in teaching, building systems based on machine learning and engineering for production use. He collaborated with leading data engineers, data analysts, and junior data scientists to build and launch reliable data products ranging from churn prediction to portfolio performance metrics algorithms on InvestNet data platform, generating over 40 millions in revenue. He possesses diverse experience in finance domain entailing account churn prediction, customer segmentation, portfolio performance metrics, and reconciliation systems based on machine learning and on educational software system, including various analytical metrics associated with activities of students. He received Young IT Professional Award from Computer Society of India for the project The Darknet and multiple national level awards for technical work. Today, we are privileged to have an opportunity to listen to him this afternoon. On behalf of all gathered here, I welcome you, sir, to this session. And now you can take over the session, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Joe. So good afternoon, one and all. I thank Joe and the other faculty of R.M.D and the management for giving this opportunity. And yeah, upfront, I would like to convey a point that let it be a very informal, friendly session. And I really take it as an opportunity to share some of my knowledge, which I have obtained for the last 5 years, from this industrial experience. So primarily, moving on to the topic, prototype validation, you all know, but primarily, I would like to, add more of the data science experience, I possess, and I have customized this topic, accordingly. So please feel free to interrupt me at any point in time. We can clarify your doubts then and there. So yeah, please be free. Okay, so let's move on. Yeah, so let's start with the story. So let us consider a scenario, or from which, okay, so this is the use case. See, your client is your younger brother or sister, and he wants to buy 1 kg of mangoes from the nearby vendor. So the use case is for your younger brother or sister. Maybe you can consider him or her as 8 to 10 years old. So he or she is your client, and the requirement is to buy 1 kg of mango. Okay, you may be thinking, what's the big deal? The deal is they want a solution from you where they are going and visiting a vendor who is having cart full of mangoes, and your brother or sister is allowed to pick any of those mangoes from that cart full of mangoes from the vendor, and it's all measured per kg, and they are going to pay per kg. So now, they are asking for you. Maybe imagine, you have a startup, or you have, say, a established company or whatsoever. So this client is coming and approaching you for a solution that when I am picking, say, 4 or 5 mangoes from that cart full of mangoes, how to pick the sweetest mango that is available in that cart. So, hope you are clear with the requirement. What is the requirement? First, who is the client? Your youngest brother or sister in your family. What is the use case to pick a cart to pick 1 kg of mango? And what is the requirement? Those mangoes your client picks should be the sweetest of all. So they are expecting a solution, which can be an algorithm, which can be like say an app or whatsoever. So primarily, as this session is much focused towards motivating or encouraging, like say startups. My primary experience in working with the industry, and which is very vital, is we need to really uh, confirm and ensure that we understood the requirements from the client. For example, a client might come and ask you, like, say, uh, you know, imagine, okay, there is a river in his hometown, and he is coming and asking you a solution to cross that river. Okay, to cross that river. So there are multiple ways, right? So what could be the possible solutions you can give to that client for crossing a river, for crossing the river? Uh, any solutions which is striking your mind? So the requirement, there is a river, and you have to help this guy to cross the river. There are multiple ways of solving this. Okay, way number one. Okay, you want to cross that river. What will you do? Yeah, okay. Yeah, Naresh is saying, I'll build him a boat, right? And Sindhu is saying, I'll build a bridge. Okay. So, of course, I agree. Boat can be a solution, bridge can be a solution. Even you can give him a helicopter, that can be a solution. Or simply you could teach him how to swim. So that can also be a solution. And still there could be multiple more possible solutions that can exist. But if suppose say the client is expecting something like a boat, and you are giving him a helicopter, then probably your efforts will go in vain. Or if suppose say the client is say expecting something like a helicopter or a bridge, and you are teaching him how to swim and cross that river. So this communication is very 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 vital. And to be honest with you, most of the industrial problems take several iterative approaches back and forth, because like the client will be having something in their mind. That is the most difficult part. So even if suppose say okay, the client is coming up and agreeing, and okay, you all agree, say okay, the client is coming and in a demand of asking a parachute. Let us take, or say a helicopter whatsoever maybe. So if you ask okay, what sort of say parachute or helicopter you want, they will be speaking in terms of very very vague things. I want the best. How will you quantitatively measure the best, right? So I want something very fancy. I want, so lot of things will be very very hard to interpret, or in other words, it will be very very hard to test, right? So the biggest hurdle in a project is just note down the requirements, so that it is easy for a tester to test, in a piece of paper. If that has been sorted out, like point number 1, 2, 3, and if suppose that can be verified, then probably that is great. yeah, coming back. So insisting, like, understanding the client requirement is the biggest of all. uh, any company, any project, okay, if that client requirement is, like, understood in a very very proper way and communicated to the technical team in a very professional and technical way, definitely, like, the project is of going to be a great success, and there will be a lot of cost saving as well. Okay, so now the requirement here for our client, who is just a 8 or like say 10-year-old boy or girl, is like, when I am picking, not when I am, like, yeah, I can, whatever, like, you give it to me. Using that, even, I can scan all the mangoes, or I can take the mango, say, on a random basis on hand, and I can check. And so in that way, like, okay, the requirement is like, okay, how to uh, pick a handful of, like, say, mangoes, 4 to 5 numbers, which uh, you will be, like, giving to your younger brother or sister. Okay, so now what you feel is, this is also something new to you. So in that way, okay, and moreover, he's also, like, a very young guy, right? So you both agree, okay, let us come up with one rule. Okay, so if you are supposed to give that one rule in identifying the best mango that is available, what could be that rule? What will you say? Pick those dash. Any suggestions? Hope you are clear with the requirement. There is a cart full of mangoes. We have the luxury of selecting any mango from that cart, and the requirement is, we need to investigate and select the sweetest mango that is available. And now, initially, in V1, in the first version, what we are agreeing upon is like, okay, I'm not giving you an app or something very fancy. I'm going to give you a rule. Use that rule and pick that mango. So this is the deal. And now, if you are in that position of, like, giving that rule, what could be the rule? Because, like, you are all familiar to mangoes. You could have tasted mangoes. So in that way, with your past experience, or in other words, if you are that guy, and if you are, like, supposed to pick say 4 5 mangoes, what will be the rule, like, you will be applied? So you'll go and take some random mangoes, or what? Pick the ripened mangoes. Yes, again, how that guy will identify this is ripen. Some simple rule. Okay, so I hope, like, you all agree. uh, yeah, okay, color, absolutely. So let's start with, like, say, color. So you are giving a rule that, go look at those mangoes, pick only the bright yellow mangoes. Okay, pick only the bright yellow mangoes, because uh, you feel like, okay, in the past, you have this experience, and this trial has worked out to you. So in that way, like, you are saying, okay, but now life is not that simple. Your brother, you know goes and do the same thing, and he feels like, there is more to mangoes than color. He feels like, even certain mangoes which are not that very bright yellow in color is tasting sweeter. So now he's asking, okay, let us improve the solution, and let us have two rules. In that way, you are now, like, supposed to come up with one additional rule. Okay, if then. So rule number one, yes, both. both the client and you are agreeing. Pick the bright yellow mangoes. And now you are expected to improve your previous version of your solution, and you are asked to come up with an additional rule in that way. Now what will be the extra rule or that additional rule you will be giving? Any suggestions? Yeah. So now, okay, let us mention that yes, along with the color, we are adding another parameter, say size. So now, what is the rule? Okay, among all those mangoes that is available, pick those mangoes which are bright yellow in color, and among those bright yellow mangoes, pick those mangoes which are bigger. Okay, which are bigger, right? So now, okay, your client, who is your youngest brother or sister, is say happy with this rule, but you are going to an vacation to US, and surprisingly, there the mangoes are tasting different, right? So there, he's finding that green mangoes, which are bigger, are tastier than the yellow ones. Now, he's coming back and saying, no, there is much more things to mangoes. This cannot be say applicable across the world. Maybe in our hometown this works. In our hometown, say location, if we keep it as say in India, then probably this might work. But this is not say working. And you both agree to improve upon where you guys are coming up with an additional rule stating that typically what location. So three rules now you are defining: color, size, and now say location. So if location is India, then probably this work. But if location is US, then probably something else is working. So now imagine you are trying to give this as a program. You are going to write a computer program to help to choose these mangoes, so that your brother can feed those labels into your program as input. And now say your program will be coming up with an output saying this mango is sweet or not, right? So far the rules are say color, then size, and then location. And this will be say the typical flow of our program, right? Or say the decision making process. If the color is yellow, yes, then check if the size is big, yes, then check if location is India, then it is sweet. Okay, then it is sweet. If not, right, the other way, if any of these rules doesn't get satisfied, then probably we are going to conclude that it is not sweeter. It doesn't mean that always you need to start from the color. You can start from the size and then move on to the color and location. So there are say multiple ways of coding it. If you are doing it in rule, there is no hard and fast rule that this should be first or whatever. So maybe someone will be starting with color, someone will be starting with size, maybe someone will starting with typically say location, and primarily, most importantly, okay, you will validate to what extent your tool or your solution is working. So all of you may be aware of say accuracy, uh, but there are more such performance measures when compared to accuracy, depending on the context, depending on the nature of the problem, depending on the nature of the circumstances. We will be relying upon some of the performance measure. So it need not be accuracy all the time. It can be something else. So let us see what are all those performance measures we might be able to do. So how will you validate, right? So how will you validate? So imagine you have built a prototype, uh, which is typically like say a computer program that will classify whether a mango is sweet or not, which expects input for three labels or parameters, which are size, shape, and color. And based on that values you feed to that particular thing, obviously you will get that output, right? So when you are picking the first mango, let us label that as M1, okay, and you are investigating the color, you are feeding the color is yellow, you are checking with the vendor, okay, where is it got cultivated, the location is India, you are checking the size, you are checking the shape, and probably, okay, since the size is normal, since it's not bigger, you are declaring that, okay, this mango is not sweet. Then probably like say, let us take that M3 label, third mango, you are labeling it as M3, and you are taking it as like say red. Then so it all like say depends on how like we have programmed the computer and accordingly. Okay, so we can check like say how are these rules as I mentioned, right? So in this case, okay, if we go with so on the left hand side what you are seeing is like something that has been practically verified. What does it mean? You have physically went to that particular shop, you have like labeled some 14 mangoes, you have handpicked those mangoes based on the rules, you have like what cut those mangoes, you have tasted, and you have concluded that is this mango tasting sweet or not. So this is the ground truth. The left hand side what you see is the ground truth, which is something generated manually, like based on your physical investigation, and you practically manually like doing that testing. The right hand side will be the program output, and primarily as we know, M1 will be yes, M2 will be yes, because our first rule is color. M3 will be no, M4 will be no, M5 will be no. So obviously this will be the output. So when we are like say investigating this, so uh, the actual scenario, the sweet is something, the ground truth which you have generated by physical investigation. Second, the last column or the rightmost column, rule number one is what like say the output that has been generated by like the program. So now the program has identified two times correctly. Okay. So the mango is actually sweet, and the when the mango is actually sweet, the program has also predicted or identified two times as rightly. When the mango is not actually sweet, now like it has also. So typically like you can have performance measures like say accuracy, and you can have precision. In other words, like say among all those mangoes that are sweet, or to what extent your program is like predicting or identifying correctly when the circumstance is actual yes. In our case, the circumstances like whether the mango is sweet or not. Okay, this can be precision. Similarly, like say there is another parameter like say we have recall. So maybe like you might be familiar with. Similarly, if you are moving on with rule number two, which is the size, obviously like say we will be able to. So coming to the point, right? So did any company use prototype validation and become successful, right? So, and obviously, you all know, like, I don't think, like, I need to introduce you what is prototyping or say validation. I believe, like, we all, like, are familiar about it. So, did any company use prototype validation and become successful? Yes, there are multiple examples. Okay, there are multiple examples. So, the first part of this particular session is primarily focused on uh, is prototype validation that is something useful? Of course, yes. And the second half, I will be like, uh, introducing machine learning, whereby, with much ease and with tremendous power, you will be really able to validate, or even like, if you have some good ideas, that can be getting boomed as a software solutions or whatever, or a good startups as well. Okay. So one classical example which I remember, okay, from my childhood days is like say this pulsar. So for example, if you remember your childhood days, okay, or if you ask a question, what was the bike your father was owning when you are a kid? Uh, Primarily, like the most of the answers will be either Hero Honda Splendor or either from Hero Honda or TVS. Okay, so your father or maybe some of senior people in your family definitely could have like so for example, I remember when I see like any school parking when I was doing my schooling, almost like 75 to 80 percentage of the bikes will be like say Hero Honda Splendor in particular, and the rest will be like say. So Bajaj was like totally unknown during that 1990s, 80s, 90s. So Bajaj was totally unknown, and their market share was very, very, very less. Definitely, I will say like say even anything less than very, very, and nobody could have imagined. So now Bajaj did something very, very interesting. A simple exploratory analysis they did. A simple descriptive analysis they did. What they did is, so those consumer information, who is buying new bikes will be available in the RTO. Okay. As you all know, there is no surprise because we will be registering and all the information will be available across India. They collected this information, and what they did is they did a very simple analysis or a very, very basic exploration, and they categorized the age group of the new buyers. Okay, so among some 100 new buyers who are buying a two-wheeler, what is the age group? Surprisingly, the predominant age group was say something like 20 to 30. This was like the heart uh, segment, the age group. And now like say they analyzed, okay, so this is the heart segment. People are buying two wheelers at the age of 20 to 30. They are the primary target. What they want, okay, what they want, what will be something very attractive to them, and they like come up with some answers. Some instant pickup, some like what uh, so right, so some fancy sounds, some fancy horns, if possible raise the wheels. So these are all, and okay, when I need to provide all these things, okay, definitely there will be like some negatives as well, right? Otherwise even the competitors will also be coming up with such things. So they felt, yeah, the negative could be mileage. Yes, we will be able to provide instant pickup, we will be able to provide all this fancy stuff, but mileage. And they felt, okay, at the age of 20, 25, these guys are either school or college students, and they are taking their parents, they are taking the money from their parent pocket. Definitely, like, they don't have any seriousness for what they are spending. In that way, like, they compensate, they come up with this pulsar. And really at that time and all, uh, I think like Hero Honda or like so those TVS bikes were giving a very good mileage, maybe 70 plus or something like that. But Pulsar was not at all that attractive in terms of mileage. It was very, very poor, but still it really picked up. So why they could, and now like they conquered that hard market, and really like they have come up. Similarly, what is the second they analyzed, they really analyzed, and then it was say 30 to 40. Primary factor mileage, they come up with models like Platina or Discover. So it was a good success, and all of the sudden from nowhere they really like grow to a greater extent. and they competed with the top players in the two-wheeler market. So ultimately, if you just think of what was the spark, what was the thing, just a basic exploratory analysis. They just like acquired some data, and most importantly a decision. Okay, uh, and after this I will say, like, a lot of change has happened in the industry. A decision that has been taken based on data, not based on anybody's gut feeling, not based on anybody's experience. So gone are those days. In the olden days, like, there will be a boss. We have bosses, but still, with a bossy attitude, they will come and say, out of my 40-year experience, I say, let's take this decision. Okay. Out of my 20 plus years of experience, let us take this decision. Gone are those days. No decision right now in industry is taken based on anybody's experience or anybody's gut feeling. Every decision in industry is now exclusively taken upon based on data. So I really like, emphasis this point. Please, you know, in your decision making process, in your validation process, give much emphasis to data if that is available, because that can really, like, give you a completely a different thing. And still, uh, there are several other examples. So there is a saying, it was a it was proved to be a myth. So initially, like, people believed that uh, newborns don't have this taste glands developed, so they will be unable to differentiate taste. But it is proven now that during the first 3 months, the newborn baby won't be able to taste different varieties, but they will be having some basic things. So they will be able to differentiate sweet and bitter. Uh, so now comes the question, right? Uh, Now, if you take NAN, if you take Lactogen, Farax, Similac, or all these baby drinks, they will be adding taste to that. Okay. When it was believed that typically a newborn won't be able to differentiate those tastes, it will be just like, say, sweet or bitter. That's it. But in spite, these companies, these baby drinks, they are giving more emphasis for taste. Why? What is the reason? Because it is the nature of the mother to taste that before she gives it to her child. So your product will be successful only if you convince that baby's mother, because she is the deciding authority. She is the buyer. It is not the baby coming and asking for NAN or Lactogen or Ferax. It is that mother, which means the mother has multiple taste glands. The mother will be able to differentiate even, sweetness. She will be able to differentiate multiple things. Convince, you will be able to sell the product. So ultimately, look at the attitude, right? Yes. What is this product? Baby product. Who is the direct consumer? Newborns. But the buyer is a different category, is exclusively a different category. So these are the, those missing details we really need to work out when we are, like, coming up with an idea. See, definitely every idea will be having lot of potential, but ultimately, when that gets properly validated, when that gets properly presented, and if there is a marketing base, definitely today's scenario, a lot of startups have really, like, gone something great. And even, like, I have yeah, closer to more than a decade of educational experience as well. In that way, I have mentored some student groups for startups and all. But my basic understanding there is, like, say, ultimately, if you want to have a faster growth, primarily you need to concentrate abroad market. So it's so simple. The equation is very, very simple. And this really I realized when we went for a student trip to Singapore. So with a lot of thing like, yeah, we somehow landed Singapore. So there, we have planned to visit this IMAX theater, and we booked everything online, and we were lazy not to take a printout here because of the last moment rush up, and we thought, okay, it's a printout, right? So we can take it in Singapore. So we went to a shop, a very small shop, and like, we gave this PDF or we mailed the PDF and were taking a printout. And what is the cost? Just $1 Singapore. Just $1 Singapore. So I was completely shocked. Yes, nothing to shock there. It's $1 Singapore. But if I could have taken that printout here, it could have been 1 rupee. But there it is 50 rupee. You have that $1 Singapore, which is a small coin, but since in the exchange, you have given a 50 rupee for obtaining that $1 Singapore coin. So ultimately, uh, IT is very successful because it is not possible to take a printout or a Xerox here and sell it in Singapore or US. So if that is possible, the cost for a printout is 1 rupee. The cost for a Xerox is say 40 paise, but you will be able to sell it in Singapore for 50 rupee. You will be able to sell it in US for 78 rupee, and you may be able to sell it in say UK for 100 plus rupee because of the exchange difference. So in that way, ideally, similarly, if you can prepare a tea here for 10 rupee, really like, you will be able to sell it in Singapore for the same $10. You will be, but you are able to develop a code here. And if you can market it in Singapore, obviously, your profit is 50x. If you can develop something here and obviously market and successfully sell it something in US, your profit is say 78 or 80x. And in UK, it might be Dubai, it's something. So ideally, like, that is how the companies are successful. So for your information, for a entry level data analyst, in US, you have to pay $100,000, which is obviously 75 lakhs per annum. But for the same job, if the company is providing say 7 to 8 lakh per annum here, it's ultimately a great deal. You will be really getting a tremendous resource. What is the cost saving? What is the value add? It's something unimaginable, right? That is why IT is something really booming. Nobody wants to pay $100,000 in US and to recruit a data analyst there. Instead, they are happy to recruit the same data analyst in India, and they are okay to give like say only 10 percentage of that. So for owning one data analyst in US, you will be really like, able to own 10 plus data analyst in India with a very decent satisfaction and salary. So this is primarily the difference. So in that way, really startups can be very successful if you could really like, focus international markets, especially if that is with IT. Yeah, moving on to the second segment. Uh, yeah. So some introduction about machine learning, and I want you to just have a thought on it and try to use it if possible. Yeah. So machine learning, this is the simplest definition. It states systems that automatically learn programs from data, right? So yeah, primarily, what does it mean? You could have uh, like see lot of things looks very jargon, but when you like, penetrate deep into that, it's very simple in basics. So artificial intelligence is some difficult word for many to really like say understand. Maybe for example, all of you could have seen this film called Endiran, right? So there, if you recall, there is a scene where the heroine, Aishwarya Roy, called as Sana will be like say preparing hard for the university examination, and now like comes our Chitti. So Sana will be giving her books to Chitti, and instantly Chitti learns everything. And obviously, when Sana from the exam hall, like request Chitti for those particular questions, he will be voice share the answers. So this was the scene, right? And yeah, this is AI. Why? Because there is a robot which is exactly doing as what like say human being does. But look at the process that's happening. So a book is given, and it is proclaimed that like the robo is reading, but typically what's happening, scanning of some pages, right? And then those pages are say stored in the memory. Of course, computer memory is much more scalable and robust when that compared to the human minds, and you can store it anything. So in that way, like it's not a big deal. So it's primarily scanning, and then it's some storage in the memory, and then what happens? A basic data retrieval. Yeah, input query is given in terms of voice. Maybe that gets converted into text, and then that converts into query or whatsoever, and now like a basic data retrieval, and the output format is again a voice. So there is no big deal, but still like say what is AI? What's the confusion even like I had in those like say past? And I was really finding very hard to understand like say what is this machine learning? How can a system learn automatically? How is this possible? How can a system learn automatically? And to a traditional program, we will be feeding two things, right? One, input, two, algorithm, and we will be getting the output. But in a machine learning program, what we will be giving is input, target output, and the machine will be writing the program on its own. So how is this possible was the question, and yeah, we will try to see some good answers here. Okay. Of course, machine learning is around us. Google is using whether you will click a particular ad or not. There is machine learning behind. Amazon is using, okay, which movies you will watch, which books you will watch. Okay, insurance companies are now coming up, in determining your risk. So of course, why? Because you can make so much of money. There is tremendous glory. Even like if you can predict tsunami upfront, if you can predict earthquakes upfront, you'll be able to save lives. There are several other things. And similarly, I was telling you a mango example, which you can like generalize to anything. If it is a data, typically like it is one and the same. Instead of a mango, you just think. So there, what was the objective? I want to pick the sweetest mango. Now, what is the objective? I want to pick the best stock. Okay, I am having like say $100,000, and I want to invest it in the best stock, right? So same like if you are coming up with one rule, maybe the past performance, you will be coming up with the rule that okay, does the stock goes how many times below the baseline? Okay, so primarily, and maybe additional rules if you want to come up, does the stock has like several downsides, so spike. So obviously every program that is possible based on rules, every program like that can be solved using the traditional programming methods can be solved using like say machine learning. And of course now this is getting much more attraction. Even like you could have heard the previous champion Gary Kasparov got beaten by a program, so that was possible now. So again, I don't know, in our earlier days and all, like for getting a loan, primarily it's a very they will be asking you bring this or that or other. 2 3 years back, for a personal loan, like I just went to SBI, and they were just checking my credit score, and instantly they approved. I have not even given anything, just a good credit code is. So typically like that is how even loan processing is now like say working. So definitely every thing is not easy to do by hand. For example, you may be like coming up with an algorithm for picking the sweetest mango. But now, like, if you get a client for Apple, then you have to redo everything for Apples as well. Maybe, if this needs to be extended to banana, if this gets extended to be grape, probably it's very, very difficult. And now, like, any emailing solution for sperm filter identification, for face recognition, for machine translation, for speech recognition, like say automated cars or like say computer games, everywhere, machine learning is being used and it's a great candidate. So what is the basic concept? What is the general idea? Collect the data. Okay, use this data. So simple. So in the uh, typical machine learning world, what we need to collect or obtain is like say the input. In the mango example, okay, the label for that mango, right? So that particular mango, M1 with the color of the mango, with size of the mango, shape of the mango. If anything else to mango, okay, you just add it. And finally, the target output, right? Is that mango was sweet or not? Okay, maybe from the experience of that vendor or out of your personal experience in tasting that mango. Okay, and ultimately, we use this combination. What is that? Input output combination, input target output combination, and we call that as the train data. Feed it to a model, and obviously we predict. Okay. So everywhere, this is getting used. As I mentioned, this is the primary difference between a typical traditional programming and machine learning. In traditional programming, we feed data program or the algorithm and we get the output. But in machine learning, we feed data output and we get the program. Okay. So let us once again, like say, revise those things. The randomly selected specimen of the mangoes, we call it as the train data, and those characteristics, right? The color, the size, shape, location, these are called as the feature. And what is the expectation? What is the target? Like, does it taste sweet or not? So that sweetness of the mango is the output variable. Okay. So these are the basic terminologies like we will be using. What is the train data? Train data comprises of that those subject of interest or those like say uh, those data which are of interest in that particular domain along with that and the characteristics of that data, in our case mango in terms of any other thing, right? So those are the features and ultimately the end objective which has been proven in the past becomes the output variable. So from the raw data, we will be extracting the feature, we will be building the model, we will be deploying it in the production, and we will be like predicting. Okay, we will be predicting. And then once a model is trained, then typically like you will be test. Here comes the validation, right? You will be test. So in that aspect, like say test is those mangoes which are unknown to you. What is train? Those mangoes which you have like bought, which you have cut down, which you have tasted, and you have realized or you have like concluded that this is sweet or not. What is the test data set? Those data are those mangoes which are new to you, which you have not like tasted before. Now how will you test? Okay, feed the labels, feed the features to the model, ask the model to predict, ask the machine to predict, and now like you physically verify. Once you get a great performance measure, just move it to production. Obviously, like you will be able to come or productionize this as an app. You will be able to productionize this as a kind of an IoT solution, a tool, whatsoever you want. It's up to you, right? So yeah, obviously, like you will be able to come up with several other things. So ultimately, there are key types of analytics to conclude. One is like say the descriptive, where we will be investigating what happened. So Bajaj is a classical example where they did just a descriptive analysis. They really like took a good number of data and analyzed what happened. What is the hard buying segment? Just like maybe a plot will do, right? What is the age group? That simple as that. And based on that, like they come up with the innovative solution and they succeeded. Predictive, like why is this happening? Like is that or will it happen? Will it happen? Okay, what happened is descriptive. will it happen? So yes, somebody has purchased, or yesterday it has rained. Is there a trend? Will it rain today? Okay, prescriptive, what to do? Maybe like, let us take an example. Assume like, you are a theater owner, and yeah, now this beast movie is coming up, and you are thinking or analyzing whether you can run, just as an example, okay, in your theater or not. And in that way, like, you really want to find whether you will end successful, and you want to investigate that, say, okay, what could be the maximum I can spend, okay, for taking up this movie. Okay, so the possible descriptive thing could be like, say, uh, very simple, mean, median, okay, standard deviation, or a simple thing could be more than sufficient, right? So what could be the insights you will be able to derive with this particular thing? What was the average ticket sales for a week? What was the previous popular movie, busiest hours, age distribution, right? So okay, out of which what you will be able to do, you'll be able to give good discounts. If you find out that, okay, this is not a busy hour, you will be coming up and saying, okay, for this particular show time, there is a 25% discount, right? So in that way, you won't be like, giving the discount unnecessarily, where even otherwise you could have really earned a good deal. So you will be able to, like, concentrate and give those discounts to the right segment during the right slot, and something like that, right? Similarly, predictive to draw conclusions and predict, like, say, the future behavior. Okay, so here, yes, previous Vijay movies are a hit. Will, like, this movie will also be a hit. So you will be analyzing, how about the crew, how about the other aspects and other things. This is something like, coming up. So it's a dynamic thing, right? So yeah, in that way, I think, like, we are on time, and I believe. Uh, this is something useful to you, and really, like, thanks for such a wonderful crowd for your patient listening. Yeah, thank you so much. Any doubts, please ask. Otherwise, over to you, Dr. Joe.
Students, do you have any doubt? You just ask. Anyone? Okay, Dr. Raja, it's such a wonderful session, especially for each and everything. You take a real-time example and you elaborately discuss even what is the importance of data analysis. You just really give a deep analysis impact about the importance of data science. Thank you so much for spending the time with us and giving the great information to us. Thank you again, and thank you all. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.